Hey everybody, welcome to another COVID-19 Small Business Support Center webinar. This week has been an amazing week. It's been an amazing week. The weather is improving. There are signs of positivity coming in. You know, we're hearing news from around the world of, lockdown measures being slowly released. I'm hearing more and more about stores and restaurants or takeaway services now starting to open up, etc. So it's been a really, really good week. And this week's focus has really been around mindset, leadership, peak performance. And we had the amazing Raghav Prakash on earlier this week on Tuesday talking around peak performance. If you haven't watched that webinar, make sure you go off and watch that. We follow that up with Piers Mummery and then Alan Kleinens yesterday. I hope I'm pronouncing his surname right. I always get that surname wrong. But that was an amazing one. We were really talking about the inner leadership and the clarity of conversation that you have amongst with yourself. And I wanted to wrap up with, on the whole thing around peak performance, talking about fitness and nutrition hacks while you're kind of in this kind of lockdown period. And again, I've got my resident expert, Akash, on. Akash, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And how has your week been? Actually, we were just talking about this offline. How's your week been since we've now got another extension of a couple more weeks to go?
I definitely share a similar sentiment to you in that it's feeling much more positive. I think the weather's helping. And I've also noticed a few more restaurants, takeaways popping up here and there, a bit more cafes around. So
yeah,
I think things are starting to look positive. It feels positive. I think a lot of it is due to the weather.
Yeah, well, I tell you something. Do you know what? I think people will go stir crazy if it was just wet and miserable outside. I think the sun does a big thing for us. You know, you wake up earlier, you kind of feel a little bit more vibrant and happy when you get up and stuff like this. So, obviously, your business R&D Fitness does a lot around obviously the health, well-being, the fitness, the body shaping. There's also some areas around work around mindset. I noticed recently you've got a partnership with R&D as well. Basically, there is a lot of things that you're doing right in the business, and I see a lot of the stuff that you guys post around the before and afters with people in their six packs and stuff like this. One of the things that we were talking about this week has been primarily around making sure that people are giving themselves a chance to sort of slow down a little bit, take a little bit more time for themselves, get into that happy zone, where they feel comfortable and, focus on one thing. Raghav talked about this on Tuesday where he said, look, one of the things to peak performance is moment to moment. And I think, one can sort of feel to themselves, especially those that don't normally get out there and do exercise, people like me, for example, or don't really pay a lot of attention to their nutrition, again, like me, can tend to feel like they're kind of coasting right now. We're in this period for another couple of more weeks. I think we're starting to see some positivity, but at the same time, I think we're also starting to see some habits changing in people. What kind of advice or perspective do you have on the fact that this kind of lockdown is really almost encouraging or forcing people to start really thinking about their mental health, their physical health, and their nutritional health?
Well, I think one thing you touched on there is the fact that habits are changing. We've only been in lockdown for 4 weeks, and they always say it's like the 21 days to change your habit. There's all these different numbers that are thrown about, but one of them is always 21 days, 3 weeks. And I think people are now getting into new habits and new routines that previously, and whether they're positive or negative, that previously they didn't have. And I think it really is a good time, if ever, to be focusing on your physical and mental health, because ultimately to keep your immune system healthy, to stay positive in all the areas of uncertainty, there's always one thing you can control, which is your physical being. You can control how you move, you can control what you put in your mouth. And that anchor and that control, that focus can mean a lot during uncertain times. And this gives you that platform. If you can connect to that reason, this gives you a platform to really build some positive habits here. You know, if you're stuck at home, you haven't got any social events going on, you haven't got these temptations of, you know, going to the bar and drinking and going for a burger, etc. I mean, unless you're going for the takeaways, but you have to go out your way to get it now. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a real chance and opportunity to instill some positive habits around your food intake, around your exercise regime, and really start seeing the benefits of physical focus on the rest of your life. So whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a high performer or business owner or an executive or whatever you're trying to do, if you're striving for that peak performance, which is something you're talking about a lot this week,
Yeah.
you have to take care of number one. And the number one is yourself. You're the biggest asset in your business. And I actually wrote an article this week about, which hasn't come out yet. It's called Why Entrepreneurs Need to Use the Physical as the Vehicle to Grow Their Business. The reason I said that is because most people associate their biggest bottleneck in their business being their certain strategy or certain sales tactic or marketing or whatever it may be. But for most of them, it's actually themselves. Whether it's in their mindset or whether how they think, or it's their actual functioning and their ability to push hard. Because, you know, if you're a leader of a company, you have to be the one driving things forward. You have to be the one that's carrying the spirit, that's driving the team along. And if you're not at your AAA game, if you're not working at your best and performing at a high level, how do you expect everything else to move forward with you? And when I speak about high performance and using the physical fitness to drive this, I always think of it as a race car. You know, you're not going to drive your race. You're not going to drive a car around a track 100 miles an hour without ever stopping or without ever filling up with fuel. You're gonna need to take breaks. You need to take pit stops. You're gonna have to recharge. You're gonna have to give it good fuel. And if you think about all the components that go into transforming your physique, it's the training, which is your fuel. Ironically, the ironic thing is, by training hard, you actually gain more energy. So you have the energy is there. You got the nutrition, which is your fuel in the tank, and then there's the other aspects of sleep and hydration and general activity. And when you compound all these together, you end up with a real high performance car, which can take you around the track year after year, and not only just take you around the track, but take you around the track with a high performance. And you're not at risk of breaking down, because if you break down, everything else will break down.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, and I think, you know, we talked about the fact that, you know, the sun's out, and, you know, right now that's kind of the vitamin D, they say, actually. But the whole thing about brightness kind of brings this whole different kind of feeling to people. They feel a lot more positive, a lot more productive, a lot more proactive. They kind of want to get up and run with things. You know, I was talking to someone the other day about, you know, the power that citrus fruits have, like, you know, oranges and grapefruits, and, you know, just the colors, just the vibrancy of the color, the lemon, the yellow of a lemon, etc. It's not even just the citrus itself, but just the color brings things to life. You know, I mean, there are people who have lemon water, hot water with lemon in there, and, you know, to keep their digestive tract going. That you talked about hydration and stuff like this. People are now starting to look around, and I'm not just talking about business, but people are starting to look at how their future projection is going to be. Yesterday, Alan was talking around meditation, and one of the things he does right now with his group of people is he gets them to project, you know, where they want to be or what they want life to look like in the next sort of 30 days, 60 days. And yesterday, one of the things that we came up with was with this trilogy of what we called infinity moments. So this is something which is like a perfect moment, one from your past, one from your future, and you bring them together, and it kind of bolts onto this whole thing of what an infinity moment could look like today. And I think whilst perhaps a lot of people are like, you know, they're missing the gym, or they're missing getting out and being able to run with their running partner, or whatever it is. I think how important is it that people start to project about where they want to be, rather than starting to think about where they currently are and how life has been for the last 3 weeks. Do you understand what I'm talking about? I mean, you yourself have talked about a small shift in the way you see things, and, you know, you're seeing things around you kind of changing slowly. How important is it that people who are trying to remain productive, proactive, and want to get to peak are projecting themselves rather than just living in the past.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a state of looking at what you want in the future, and it's also about if we're relating this to physical fitness and relating it to taking care of your health and fitness, you have to think about if that's what you want in the future, how is the physical going to help drive that?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking about your work and your career and your family, how is being physically fit going to help drive your career, help drive you being more present and energetic with your family? And that's the way you got to project it from a physical point of view. Is you got to start connecting the dots with, okay, if I take care of my physical being now, it's going to allow me in the future to be able to be more present, to be able to be more energetic, more focused at work, more clear, more confident, etc. So you have to project forward because you don't want to be living in the past, and you don't want to be consistently thinking about the uncertainty of now. You want to be using this as an opportunity to look forward, change your paradigm, and look at how taking care of yourself will help drive whatever you're looking to achieve in that future.
I mean, we've seen a lot of change in the climate around us. Yesterday I was watching this small segment in the news around how the smog is lifted in India, and now after a decade, you can actually from 100 miles you can see the Himalayas, and you've got parts of Italy which is completely cleaned out. Now they're sort of thinking in parts of Madrid now to close down roads, because of pollution, etc. And the news story came to a situation where they were talking about the fact that carbon emissions have started to come down massively, but it's at the cost of lives, because of COVID-19, etc. And there's a little bit of a kind of a sense of this whole thing of being in lockdown has, as we already said, has kind of almost encouraged or forced people to start really thinking productively or proactively about their health, what they're putting in their mouth, what they're not putting in their mouth, and being able to sort of be a little bit more connected to their lifestyle. Do you think it's going to change when we go back to normality? Do you think people will fall back into that kind of trap where they'll kind of, the burger bar's open, so I'm going to go back out there. The pub's open. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen?
Honestly, I think people forget. People have a short-term memory, and let's say everything gets lifted in a month's time. I reckon in a couple of weeks after, the restaurants will be filled up. People will eat back to their old eating habits and lifestyle habits. I don't think it will be long enough to force a real change, and I think people forget. And there'll be a few things where there'll be a new norm, like for example, working from home. I think will become a new norm in many areas, or at least done so more. Online deliveries, these sorts of things, online shopping. Those sorts of industries will definitely have a new norm, or behavior. Those sorts of behaviors have a new norm. But with regards to people's lifestyle choices, I can't see that becoming suddenly extremely positive. People are thinking about it now, but for the most part, I can't see that changing, to be honest.
Well, it's interesting because you say normally around 21 days for a habit change, but it is a very small segment of your habit that has actually changed, and it's still quite unconscious to you.
Exactly. And then also when you get back to normal, those habits can change again, right? If we out of lockdown for 21 days, those habits will start going back to normal again. So it's that's why you have to project, and that's why an important thing you mentioned about projection is that's why you have to really connect why it's important and make the real deeper connection there, not just the surface level. I want to look good, I want to feel good. Those are all great, but you have to understand what it's going to actually help you in line with your highest priorities and highest values in your life. Because if you can align it to your highest priorities and highest values, then you'll gain, then you'll have the internal drive to want to keep those positive habits, as opposed to your external environment continuously having an impact on it because you haven't got that strong enough connection.
And I mean, and sort of like in business terms, we've talked about this in previous webinars, where kind of one of the things that we need to start looking at is giving or helping business owners with things like a process of survive, revive, and thrive.
Mm.
Do you feel that there is an element of that type of strategy that people need to start thinking about when it comes to their health and fitness and their nutrition? In terms of what kind of nutrition do they need to keep going?
Yeah.
What kind of nutrition and exercise do they need to consider as they move into that space of where they were back again? And like you said, that projection of the future of where do I really want my lifestyle to be? Because I've heard from a few people that I know during this lockdown where they've said, you know what, they kind of moved away from smoking to vaping, and now they're not even vaping, and they're like, I really hope that this stays.
Yeah.
I think how would you kind of categorize or practicalize that for someone who is thinking, right, okay, I've made some changes during this lockdown. How do I keep those changes?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, so habits are great, and the changing action is great. But you've got to look at, and we've discussed the projections and the why, all of that. You've also got to look at your environment, but also look at the precursors around you.
Yeah.
So there's one thing we call, which is precursors, and it's the act before doing. So it's the thing you do before you do it. Let's say, for example, you really struggle to train in the morning. So one thing you might do is keep your training kit right beside your bedside, and that's the first thing you change into. That's your act before the action. Or it could be you struggle to make good dinner choices in the evening. So your act would be to prep your dinner before you start the day. These sorts of things are all the precursors to good actions. And I think, and then there's negative versions as well. So like if you're in a shopping queue, your precursor might be shopping queue. Okay, I'll check my phone. Right? That's a negative precursor. So it's not always positive. But you've got to now identify all the positive changes you've made. Let's say you're a smoker and you've now gone to vaping and now you've gone to nothing. Well, look at what were the positive precursors that cause you to make those changes, and then try and make sure that you can instill them in your day-to-day when lockdown is lifted. You've got to start setting your environment up for success, and that means creating these little mini triggers, little mini precursors that allow you to think, okay, I'll do that. Okay, I'll do that. And oh, I won't do that. Or I won't do this. And these sorts of little hacks you can use can make a big difference in the behaviors and the habits you end up developing.
And let's take it to your clients right now. You know, I mean, obviously you have a whole diverse range of different clients and needs. You know, you've got those that want to transform their bodies, right the way through to those that just want to create a balance of energy. I mean, right now, the one thing you can't do is you can't actually be socially connected to them, as in physically. You know, normally kind of the whole area of personal training and coaching is very much a kind of a contact-based thing where you're...
Actually, it's not, because our business is completely remote. So our business has always been completely online. So our method of service delivery hasn't changed in any way. It's exactly the same.
And how is the motivation of your clients, you know, with this current
I think in the beginning there was a slight shock factor, because everyone, including myself, like, oh, we don't have a gym anymore. But then we realized that people were training without gyms for years and years and years. And everyone's adapted really well to training at home with whatever available equipment they have. The biggest thing I would say is the biggest barrier for people has been the level of overwhelm for certain scenarios. So, for example, if you're a mum and now you've got to homeschool and do your regular work, all of a sudden there's another level of overwhelm. So it's a lot about redefining your structure and strategy and systems for getting through the days. But after that initial overwhelm, and after realizing that this is it now for a while, then things have picked up again. But I would say overall, because we instill the importance of using the physical as the vehicle to drive forward in all areas of life, there wasn't ever okay, well, I'm not gonna train anymore, because you can still train with your body weight, you can still train with minimal equipment, and it's so important that you still do that, because the benefits continue to come, and you just challenge yourself in a different way. That's one thing I found, is my training has evolved in the last 4 to 5 weeks, but it's been a different sort of challenge, where before it was heavy weights and lower rep ranges. Now it's like higher reps, less rest periods. It's a different challenge, and for the most part, I'm walking around sore. Every session I'm sweating tons. Like it's a whole different animal, but it's exactly what it's all about, and just pushing yourself in a different way.
And just coming back to what you were talking about in terms of overwhelm and stuff, do you feel that part of a significant part of your work right now has been on helping people reset their plans or reprioritize the way they do things, and keeping that I wouldn't say that element of motivation going, but giving them this whole vote of confidence that it's okay, and it doesn't matter if you normally run at exercise at 8 in the morning, that you now do at 8 at night or something like that. What's happening there? Have you found that there's been an uptake in you having to help people manage their schedules and stuff like this?
Absolutely. I mean, one conversation I had the other day was exactly that. It was like, it's okay. I had to tell this person, it's okay to not be perfect anymore. You don't have your perfect routine anymore. It's okay. Like, that doesn't matter. What matters is you still prioritizing yourself at some point in the day. So it might not be that perfect 9 a.m. slot anymore. It might be 10 p.m. at night. You just need 30 minutes. There's absolutely, we call it a CTP reset, which stands for like cleaning the palate reset. And so it's our first phase of the journey. And basically it's about reinstalling your non-negotiables. So whereas your non-negotiables might have been a set time or a set place you did certain things, it's just like, okay, you've got new non-negotiables now. And now it's just a case of getting them done at some point in the day. But looking at your precursors. So whereas before it might have been, you had a little walk or commute to the gym.
Yeah.
Now, like, well, how can we recreate that environment so you still feel like you're doing something which gets you out of the day-to-day? Okay, let's go for a walk around the block and then come in and then train. Because a lot of people said, I find it hard to train at the same level of intensity at home. And it's just about forgetting that it's home and just making it a new environment about it. So as simple as, because what I do is I work out in my office, but I train the opposite side. So what I mean that is, instead of looking that way where my computer is, I just look the other way.
Yeah.
So little things like that, just to make it easier and a different environment. So you've got non-negotiables, you've got the precursors, and then it's also the decision fatigue element. And that's something I'm big on, in that we all make so many decisions, trivial ones, on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I like people to try and manage as many of the trivial ones and automate them. So simplify and automate. Things like what you wear on a day-to-day basis, what you eat on a day-to-day basis. These are decisions that you don't realize how much they zap your willpower and how much they zap your cognitive capacity to be able to perform at a high level. But what's happened is, after being months and years in such a nice automated system, you now got so many new decisions to make because you're in a new environment, new routine. So it's just about re-establishing what can we automate, what can we simplify, and creating a new rituals around that. So if you were used to having your lunch at the office and you had a specific meal there, now you got to suddenly think about all the different options that are at home. Instead of making new meals every single day with new different ingredients and new recipes, that might be fun for the weekend. But if you're doing that on a day-to-day basis, you're probably going to be so tired from trying all these new things that when it comes to the end of the day, you've got no more willpower left. Willpower comes from willpower is finite, right? And you use it with every decision you make in the day.
Yeah.
If you think about, at the start of the day, your willpower cup is full. By the end of the day, it's going to be empty. But if throughout the day you're wasting it on things like, I'm going to have chicken or tofu, I'm going to have green beans or spinach, am I going to have rice or oats? If you're wasting all these little things, by the end of the day, it's going to be like, well, let's just order a pizza.
And I was just going to come to this. I think, the fact that we're more at home now, I mean, obviously you've seen the posts about people saying petrol zero, this zero, shopping is like, it's gone like threefold. The fact that supermarkets, obviously for stock control, they don't have their offers on at the moment. So, you can't go in and buy like 2 for £2 or whatever it is, basically. So people can, there is a habit, or I've seen intrinsically, like with my kids and, in the family, the way we consume, because we're at home, is much different to how our normality used to be. So obviously when my kids go to school, they go with either a sandwich, or they'll go with crackers and hummus, or some vegetable, some fruits, etc. But right now, those elements that are packed in their lunch, they tend not to have all the other, the elements that they used to have before. Equally, because we're at home, we're more attuned to thinking, right, what do we have which is different and exciting, in terms of, so it's like yesterday we were like, should we marinate some chicken and put it in the, put it in for dinner? I'm like, well, but I haven't taken it out of the freezer, for example, so I can't do that. So we ended up doing some very, very simple food. Okay, it's just past the time in that sense. But this whole thing around how much energy you consume trying to figure out stuff that doesn't need that kind of area. What kind of tips would you have to people, who are kind of falling off the routine of the food that they eat? Everyone's stuck. Apparently, half the UK have got a lot of pasta and pasta sauce, which isn't really the best source of things all the way through. The amount of sugars that you have in a dolmio jar versus just eating pasta all the time. What would you say to those that are falling off the wagon now with this?
I would say try and automate at least 80 to 90% of your meals. So if that's Monday to Friday, you're going to eat the same thing, or at least have a set menu at the start of the week that you all decide upon as a family on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So that you don't, every day it's not like, oh, what should we have for dinner? What should we have for lunch? You know at the start of the week, okay, Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's that. Even better would be having the same thing, but that's very individual. Like I'm a creature of habits. So I eat pretty much exactly the same meal every day besides Friday night and Saturday night. Well, I'll try something.
Do you prep those in advance? Because I've seen people, like when they're when they're doing their fitness routines, they could probably create a whole week's worth of chicken, broccoli, this, that, whatever it is. Do you do the same sort of thing?
There's different levels to it. So I batch cook meat. I cook a kilo of chicken, for example, on a Sunday night, and that'll be my next 5 days of chicken.
All right.
For dinner. But then things like oats and protein powder, I don't need to prep that.
Yeah.
I try to make my meals during the day very easy to prepare. So, for example, after this call, I'm going to have eggs on toast, and that's my standard 12 p.m. meal. Yeah. And then at 3 p.m. I'll have protein powder, oats, and fruit. Again, very easy to prep. And then dinner is where I'll have chicken, rice, veggies, etc.
Yeah.
But the rice and veggies are very quick, and then the chicken I batch cook. So there's different levels to it. Some people I know batch cook everything. Which is great. Like there's literally, all you have to do is literally pull out the fridge, eat it. Pull out the fridge. There's no temptation. So it's highly recommended.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, as long as you can set the meals you have in advance, at least for 80 to 90% of them, you don't want to be thinking on a Thursday afternoon what you're going to be eating. Yeah. But Friday night, that's different. Like you might want to be, okay, let's experiment a bit. Or Saturday night, you might want to experiment a bit. So save your experimentation for the weekend. But when you're in your day-to-day routine with school, with kids, homeschooling, with business, work, etc., you just want to be running on autopilot, not having to waste trivial energy on those choices. I
think, we don't have. I guess we batch cook as well, but not in that kind of routine base. That I cook on the way where it means that, like for example, if I've made a curry, I'll make a lot more of it, for example, and then I'll pack that into sort of portion sizes for each, and it's kind of a situation when we do get that, oh, what should we make today? It's like, well, it's better to just actually go for this because it is more convenient in that respect, and it doesn't frustrate you in this particular way. The other side to this, very quickly, that I want to get your opinion on is timings of eating. Okay, so there are people have set routines. So, for example, like my kids are at home now, for example. So normally they'd be up at 8 o'clock or at 7:30, getting ready for school. They will be having breakfast at 8. They'll be out of the house by 8:15, 20:15, ready for to get to school. And then you've got your lunch, and then they come home, and by about 5 o'clock they're saying we're hungry, we want to eat, and then by 6 they've eaten, etc. But sometimes now, because they're at home, we see the timing going off a little bit. Even myself, I tend to eat a little bit later in the thing, in the evening. But I've almost lost an hour of time, when it comes down to it. And sometimes I think to myself, is it too late to be eating right now? Why, normally I'd eat at 8. Sometimes I'm now eating at 9, or if I eat at 7:30, I'm eating at 8:30. And what, does that have an impact, do you feel, if you're used to having a routine of eating at a particular time, that if you're eating later, it's going to have an adverse effect?
There's a couple answers here. The first one is that if you're thinking about it from a fat loss, weight management, body composition point of view, timings don't really matter, because it's all about the calories consumed within a 24-hour period. So there's nothing about eating carbs or eating more food in later in the day that's going to cause fat gain. It's only if you've had more calories in the day-to-day
Mm.
basis. That being said, what I am a big fan of is automating your meal times. So again, similar to the foods, you don't want to be thinking about when you're going to eat what. So I have for example, mine is 8, 12, 3:30, and 7. I know I eat at those times. It's not like, oh, should I have a little snack now? No, I know I'll just wait for my next meal. So they both work together, and then you want to combine them. You want to automate the meal timings and the meal, the substance of the meal.
Yeah.
And then your body does get into a rhythm. So you'll find that once you find these meal timings, your body will start naturally getting hungry at those times, or
Right.
you expect food. So your body likes routine, it likes consistency. So if you can try and set some timings that you would normally have in day-to-day life, it's going to help you a lot more with that feeling of, and it's probably going to help you snack less as well, because you're not just like winging it on a day-to-day basis.
No, I like that. I'm throwing these questions thick and fast because I'm also thinking about the time that we have together here as well. I've also had a few people talking to me about not their weight, but water retention, or they feel like they're kind of swollen right now during this kind of period. Why do you think that is? I mean, I know you're not really a dietitian in that respect, but do you think there is an intrinsic link to the weather, maybe the climate, maybe their movement, exercise, their eating plans, that's meaning that they feel a lot fuller in that respect?
Well, without sounding crude, they might just be gaining body fat. They might just be gaining weight. So that could be one thing, is that a lot of people will be gaining weight in this period because they're not moving as much. They're not moving anywhere near as much.
And stress relates to that as well, right? So
yeah, but what stress does is it causes you to eat. So then there's a vicious cycle. You get stressed out, you reach for food, and then you repeat that cycle. But what I would recommend everyone doing is this thing: check your phone and check your step count, and check how many steps you're doing. I guarantee you've dropped it. It's dropped massively compared to what it used to be. And if you're now keeping your calories the same or eating more, you're going to be gaining weight, and that's what's going to make you be feeling fuller. And then, let's say, for example, all things being equal, you still feel like you're retaining more water. Then you need to look at your hydration, because if you're not drinking enough water, your body will hold on to it. You need to look at if you're eating more salty foods all of a sudden. Again, that's going to cause dehydration of the body, so your body will retain water in order to keep it in there. And then again, that's related to the weather as well. If it's getting hotter and you're stuck inside, you're sweating, you're not drinking enough water. So hydration will play a part into this. But more than anything, and then there's another one about sleep, and then if you sleep well, if you don't sleep well, you might feel more water retention. But for the most part, when people tell me that, they're just gaining weight. Like, I'm sorry to say it, but
well, it's the truth. I think you bring a good point around salt and stuff like that, because I think obviously when we're more on lockdown and we've been buying a lot of food in because we're not going in. Yeah, it's processed food, maybe more tin, the more high salt stuff, and that your body may not be used to having so much of that going on at this moment in time. So. The irony of water retention is to have more water, right? Is that right?
That's the ironic thing. Yeah, in most cases, more water and sleep.
That's
because if you're chronically stressed, there is a case where if you're chronically stressed over a long period of time, you will retain water because of the way it manipulates your hormones. But that's chronic stress, and I wouldn't always look to that as the first answer.
Okay. So look, I mean, we're into, what is it? I've forgotten the week 7. I think it was a 5 or 8.
Week 5, yeah.
Week 5, yeah. We've got another two or three to go.
Minimum.
Yeah, exactly. Let's be realistic. Let's say there's another 3 or 4 additional. I've been hearing stories again from the Netherlands where schools will probably be reopening back on a part-time basis by sort of May the 11th. Sweden's obviously had this herd mentality thing going on, so they've been quite free and open, going backwards and forwards in the way you shop and etc. Do you see, or do you encourage more people to still try and get out when they can, keep their routines as closely as possible to where they are, but the ultimate thing here is start to recognize what changes that they have been making to their lifestyle in terms of eating and drinking. And what final advice would you have for people when it comes to, or what's your not advice, I'd say, what's your input about people starting to journal what they're doing now?
It's funny you say that. I was literally about to say journaling.
Yeah. So do you feel that it's something that's really important that they can then, this is something that they can always reflect back on? So it's Tim Ferriss did this, he's talked about this in the past around where he's got this whole library of notebooks, basically, which are all his journals. And what he's done is he's journaled out a time when he was at a specific size, a specific weight, and a specific body shape. And what he's done is he journaled everything he used to eat, how he exercised, what he did, everything. And not that it kind of that I totally believe it, but within this, he's kind of come back and said that when I've looked and I said I've gone beyond this and I'll get back to that. He's taken that book out and reflected what his disciplines and what his routine was, and started to move back to that ritual and routine. Do you think it's advisable for, well, I'm not saying people need to start creating those kind of books, but how important do you think it is people to start taking notes about their lifestyle, their behavior, what they're putting in their mouth, what they're not putting in their mouth right now? So when we get out of lockdown, they've got almost a sort of a written instruction or specification of what they should follow.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I think journaling has many benefits that go beyond just record keeping, but I think in this climate that we're living in, record keeping journals are actually really good. Just writing down how you're feeling, what you're doing, what do you think about everything. I think it's a really interesting time to be journaling because you can look back on this in 6 months' time and think, oh, wow, this was interesting. And I was thinking that. But at the same time, you can also write down these lifestyle habits and think, okay, this is working really well for me.
Yeah.
I'm now I'm only allowed out once, so I'm going for one long run a day, and it's making me feel really good. And let me keep this up. So that could be something where you could do it. Or I'm eating this on a day-to-day basis, and I feel so energetic. Let me keep doing this. So yeah, absolutely. I would highly recommend it. And when you write it down, it also makes it more real. It'll connect. You'll feel like you connect to it a lot better. So yeah, big fan of journaling. And I think you also asked what would be the recommendation on exercising and training. I spoke to a doctor last week, and I said to him, "What do you think about social distancing and going outside?" And he's like, as long as you adhere to the social distancing rules, there's no problem with going outside and doing your exercise or your run or whatever it may be. So absolutely. And he said to me, the biggest thing I said, what would help your job as a doctor? And he said, it's for people to actually take care of themselves and to remember that they still need to take care of their physical and mental health, so they don't leave their immune system so susceptible to catching anything that comes around.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I thought, there's such an important point in that instead of letting your health dictate when you start making a change to your health, be proactive about it. Be proactive. Yeah. Take charge of your physical and mental health, because you can control that. And that's going to make you feel and put you in the best possible chance to withstand this climate.
Oh, I was about to say, you're probably going to become a stronger protector of your from a virus if you are maintaining, like you said, if you're going to race a car for 100 miles per hour, you need to fuel it, you need oil and water, you need to change. There are certain things that you need to keep servicing as you go along. So it's kind of, I guess, building not the MOT, but it's actually the service program that keeps everything at that fine
foundation.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your insights, etc. I understand you recently published a book as well. Is that correct?
It's coming out on May 24th.
What's it called? What's it about?
Yeah, it's called Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life. So the book will take you through the journey of the 5 phases methodology that we use, which helps people use the physical as the vehicle to transform their lives. So it's basically, I've formalized all my thoughts over the last 10 years in the game and put it all into a book. It's been one of the most rewarding journeys ever. I'm super excited.
Amazing.
As of this Sunday, it'll be 4 weeks. So yeah, it's all systems go now, and I can't wait for it to be out. So it's called Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life. It's out May 24th on Amazon.
Okay, so is it available for pre-order, or is it going to be
not available for pre-order? No, it'll be available on 24th of May. Yeah.
All right, guys. So look, you know what? If you're watching this now, on obviously as a recording, but watch out for that book. We will be announcing more of that. Congratulations on the book as well, Akash. And there you have, All that information, all that knowledge, all that resource, everything that's put out there, it's going to be packed into one book, which I think if you need that kind of jolt of inspiration or methodology, you should get out there and get that book. But just to summarize a couple of things that Akash has been talking about in terms of, we talked about projecting, we've talked about visualization, we've talked about the importance of journaling, routine. Get back in. If you feel like you're falling off the routine wagon, it's okay that you have fallen off, but it's not okay to stay off. Get back into what you're doing. That's what he's kind of saying out here. And there is this whole thing about responsibility and accountability. So we've talked about this in the past. In fact, one of the first sessions that we had Akash on, we talked about accountability as well. So finding accountability partners, they don't have to be in your house. They could be your gym mates that are, ringing up and saying, are you still doing what you're doing? Think about things like batch cooking that gets you back into the routines. And then, like Akash has said, have an 11, 12, 3, 7, whatever it needs to be, kind of get your body back into that routine where it starts to say, this is what I want. And the last thing, I guess, is listen to your body more than anything else. I think, we can be forgiven for not listening, or stop listening, because there's so many things that consume our attention. So any lasting comments that you'd like to say to our watchers today about their fitness and nutrition kind of hacks whilst they're still on lockdown? Anything else that you'd like to finish off this session with, Akash?
Yeah, I'll leave you guys with a quick checklist you can try and get back to on a day-to-day basis. If you're listening to this, aim for 3 liters of water a day. Aim for 10,000 steps a day. And if that means you get it all in one hit, by all means. Aim to train hard at least 3 to 4 times a week. So you can do this at home. And sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. And the last one would be to eat quality nutrition 3 to 4 times a day.
There you have it. There's your checklist. So if you're get that up, get that going. And I tell you what would be really good, guys, is come back out and let Akash know how you're getting on. I think that would be really, really good. So look, Akash, thanks for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. I know we're going to have you back again later on in our series, talking more about mindset and nutritional stuff as well. But for now, I really appreciate everything that's gone, that you've brought to the table. Congratulations with the book again. And for everyone else that's watching, that's it. That's a wrap for this week. We're back again strong next week, and we've got some interesting stuff going on next week. It's back on around finance. It's about business. We've got Nat West. We've got Brad Burton. Oh my God, that's going to be an interesting combination. We've got Piers and Michael Jacobs coming back talking about bulletproof strategies, right the way through to leadership and management under the current climate of things. So look, continue to do whatever it is that you're doing. Make sure that you are focused on your health and your well-being as much as anything else, because that's going to be a priority. Don't forget, stay at home, stop the spread, and keep saving lives. Thanks, guys.